welcome to the Ask Advisor series, where this series is specific for families with special needs. We're really just kicking off 2025, and I'm really excited for 2025. Last week was our first video, and it was going over the 2025 Annual Resource Limits Guide, where we talked about how much you can contribute to things like 401ks, IRAs, Roth IRAs, catch-up contributions for people over 50. We also went over SSI. What were the benefit increases for SSI relative to last year? What were the cost of living adjustments? How much you can contribute to ABLE accounts and more. If you missed it, go look at last week's video, and you'll see at the end of last week's video there's a link where you can see that Annual Resource Limits Guide specifically. You can also go to our website and find it. For this week and for the next couple weeks, I want to go over the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, two essential programs for people with disabilities as well as people who are retired, and they have such common names they often get mixed up and confused. So I want to delineate the difference between the two so that you have clarity on what they are and how they may be able to benefit you and your family. So I want to go back to the history, particularly of Medicare. What we were noticing in our country is as people were retiring, they no longer had access to quality health insurance. And so they implemented a program called Medicare. We all, as we're working, contribute towards Medicare with every single paycheck. We have a little bit of our taxes withheld through FICA taxes. And during our working years, as we contribute, it is like a savings account so that we can be qualified for Medicare when we turn age 65. So there are two ways to be eligible for Medicare. The primary way is in retirement at age 65 and older. And then there is Medicaid. The difference is Medicaid was not specific for people in retirement. Medicaid was specific for people with low income, low resources, and that can be for people in retirement as 65 or older, but it could also mean for people 65 and under with low incomes as well as people with disabilities. Essential differences between the two. Medicare is a federally run program, not state run. So it doesn't matter what state you're in, Medicare is going to be the same regardless of where you're at. And the beautiful thing about Medicare is it has an enormous network where you can choose HMO style plans or PPO style plans where you have a primary physician or not. And Medicare is typically very good at being able to provide traditional checkup services, doctor services, and hospital services at a pretty affordable cost. Medicaid is different. It is a joint run program between the Fed and the state, where the Fed says, hey, here are the minimum requirements you need to have in order to run the Medicaid program, but then they leave it up to the states to run it on their own, and the states have a lot of flexibility of how they want to implement that program and who it's available to. They have the ability to adjust the income and resource limits like they did in California. And Medicaid does provide traditional doctor services, checkup services, hospital services, but it's expanded. Medicaid, or Medi-Cal in California, also provides long-term care services and facility care services, home care, residential care services. Medicare does not provide that. A lot of people get that confused when they're in retirement. They think, hey, Medicare is going to provide my home care services and my long-term care services, but it does not. Medicare provides a very short window of skilled nursing care services if you get hurt and need surgery and need someone to support you until you get back up on your feet. So think an elderly individual who falls and breaks a hip and needs to have surgery, and they have to use skilled nursing facility in order to learn how to walk again and make sure that they don't have any further injuries. That is very limited in scope. It is not intended to be for long-term care services. It's intended for people in retirement to pay for that another way, whether it be long-term care insurance or out of their own pocket. Completely different. Medicaid is vastly different. And often we hear about in-home support services or home and community care waivers. Those are all things that help pay for long-term care services. So if you are receiving things like IHSS, that is part of Medicaid. Something important to know too, excuse me, is that you can be on Medicare and Medicaid at the same time. Yes, let me say that again. You can be on Medicare and Medicaid at the same time, and the way that's going to work is that Medicare is going to be the first payer, and Medicaid will fill in the gaps. This is really nice and essential, where if you have access to both, great. Moving forward in the subsequent weeks, I'm going to give you guys examples of who's going to qualify for Medicare and Medicaid, particularly for family or individuals with disabilities. Because individuals with disabilities do have times when they are eligible for Medicare. They don't have to be 65 plus, and they could be eligible for Medicare based on their parents' work record or based on their own work record if they obtained a disability sometime after age 18. Medicaid, people can be eligible regardless of work history, regardless of the parents' resources, and I will dive into that. So stay tuned to the future weeks where next week I'm going to dive into Medicaid most specifically, and the week after that I'm going to dive into Medicare. I look forward to seeing you then.